And that's where I met Wesley, and Wesley and I decided to do Flusk because we genuinely love Bubble and we just wanted to push the limits and the boundaries of what you can do with Bubble.
Welcome to another week of This Week in NoCode. I'm your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pal, and boy, do we have another exciting week for you on This Week in NoCode. First, we're going to start with a Slator news that David's going to help us take away. Then we're going to bring on one of the co-founders of Flusk, one of the only Bubble security monitoring, logging, optimization tool. They just launched a 2.0. So we bring on one of the founders to talk about what it is, what 2.0 includes, and how it can help you keep your Bubble application safe, secure, optimized, monitored, and so much more. So without any further ado, let's get into the news of this week with David.
Welcome back, everyone. This week, we're going to start off with some news from Perplexity. They raised $74 million at a whopping 100x revenue, $520 million valuation. They are a AI-powered search engine, kind of similar to a cross between Bing and ChatGPT and Google, all mixed into one. It's a really sleek product. It actually leads itself really well to the conversation we had last week of AI and OpenAI and the New York Times, and talking how we can incorporate news and the sources more completely into search results. Perplexity does a great job actually allowing you to ask questions, giving you details, giving you sources, and providing media to actually help you consume this information. It's a cool product if you haven't tried it. It's also really pretty fast.
And they have 10 million active monthly users, which is a lot. Not as much as Google, but I mean, that's still a heavy usage, especially for a new product that's coming out.
Yeah.
And raising on that much of a multiple on your revenue is insane.
Yeah. I think it has to be the user count that's really driving a lot of this. They do have a lot of pro features that I don't have pro on there, so I haven't played around with them. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. I know there have been other search engines, AI-powered search engines like Neva that had come out that had then been acquired. They eventually moved into the enterprise space. Snowflake acquired them to help search data. It'll be interesting, what happens with this. I think search will change. I actually don't think that Perplexity is the end state of search. I think this is like the middle ground of between what search used to be with links and where search will be with answers. This is a cool product. When I asked it, because I was curious how it would respond to the questions about like the affiliate links that we talked about last week, I asked what's the best laptop under $1,000. It did give me a number of answers and actually certain places to go shop. It actually shows me Best Buy results. It shows me USA Today and ZDNet so that you can actually see how people are reviewing them. It shows some weird like the results are great. The things I can do with the results are strange. Like if I'm asking a question, it offers me the ability to rewrite the results, which I guess seems interesting, but if I really want the answer, why do I care how it's written? I want the answer. Unless I'm using it to copy it into something else, which, makes me a little hesitant to understand what the motive of this answer is. Like if you're trying to screenshot this and say, hey, here's the result from Perplexity to try to get someone into something, I'm not really sure. But it was really cool. I think this is a better search UX than just Google searches. That's
interesting. It feels like this is, one of the main players stepping into the search place, now raising this much money at that valuation. I think search and finding answers to our questions is just going to get better, easier, and quicker. And I think it's going to take on whole new forms than what we've probably used to in the past. And I'm personally excited about it. I love the information age of just being able to get answers to questions we have really quickly. I'm interested to see how they integrate this into like other products, such as like Hey Siri Amazon, all that kind of stuff, if you could start to use it in those ways and get more of that context,
Mhm.
if they come out with any wearables or anything like that. So there's a whole thing that can come with this that I'm excited about. But let's move on to our next one, which is Carta versus Linear. So Carta, a Silicon Valley-based cap table management company, is facing claims from a prominent customer of misusing sensitive information. The prominent customer is the founder or CEO of Linear, and they're claiming that Carta reached out to an angel investor in Linear about selling shares without consent. Now, Carta's CEO, Henry Ward, has apologized, stating that the employee violated internal procedures. But what we ended up going to see is this very rough email exchange between the two that Linear's CEO posted online. And I think that's where most of the damage happened, for me at least personally. What do you think, David?
Yeah, this is the tough one. I used Carta at my last company. I saw that they were launching this secondary marketplace where you basically were able, as a non-investor in the company, you didn't participate in a round. You could buy shares of the company from founders, executive team, other investors, or employees, which would sounds great for the employees, but it really at the time struck me as a conflict of interest, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't want them to know anything about my business. I don't want to have to tell them about a down round or 409A valuation, which is the standard benchmark for how you value a company. I wouldn't want that getting out, and I wouldn't want anyone knowing unless I told them, right? If I was spinning it however I wanted. So it inherently felt like a conflict of interest. Also, if you look through like the archives of the internet, you can find that this has happened before with Carta, and even Paul
Hmm.
Graham,
Yeah.
pretty well respected, has come out and said like, hey, in 2017, a long time ago, like, hey, this is might not be great. Um,
Or he came out saying essentially that if you use them, they are going to contact your
of
investors.
course, because that's the
Yeah.
marketplace they're building. And so, the CEO, Henry Ward, who came out and said, hey, we don't do this. I think he was hoping that he could say that and then it would just go away. But that's not how the internet works these days. It's not that simple. And so, the internet of Twitter, right, shows up and says, no, actually, the CEO of Linear also goes, no, I've talked to other people. This has been happening. It's
Yeah.
not just this one isolated rogue employee who, by the way, would have done this on their own had it not been approved. And he's now come out and said, hey, we're just not going to do secondaries anymore. Because then the whole internet, and I'm saying the whole internet, probably 100 people, right?
The
The
bubble
whole,
of
the whole
Twitter.
internet has come
Yeah.
out and said how easy it is to switch. They're like, oh, Pulley exists. Oh, can't we just open source this other tool? It's just my favorite insult this past week, a spreadsheet with unit tests. It's just a spreadsheet. Why do we need anything more complicated than this? I
Yeah.
would happen to agree with Carta as being this like really simple tool that just somehow managed to get this huge valuation. It got the huge valuation based on this marketplace and being able to build a market
Mm.
and like win on this market. So I'm curious to see how the investors feel about this.
So you're saying they pulled this marketplace
Yeah,
then?
they're basically saying, "Hey, we're not going to sell secondary shares of companies anymore because of the conflict. We need to put founders first." I think the damage has been done, but the internet
Why are they
forgets
just
that.
figuring this out? Like it's so weird that, it went through, they built all this thing and then but on the basis of doing bad things
Yeah.
kind of, and then it's like, okay, well, we'll do it until someone really kind of puts up a fuss.
Well, the rumor was that they actually weren't doing very well because there are other platforms that do this. Zen Equity is one of them.
Hmm.
They there are better tools for secondary share sales. And so
Okay.
my hunch is that the business unit was failing and they were just trying to do anything they could to make it
Yeah.
survive, which meant violating trust, which,
Yeah.
and this is a commentary on VC, sometimes you have to hit those growth metrics to make the numbers work, right? Because
Hmm.
otherwise you're not going to get a good exit. And it pushes people into this like murky territory when lots of money's involved, people do weird things. I think that's probably what happened. So we'll see how it goes. Other people have commented to say, well, maybe they should get into the debt market. Maybe they can get into like other types of financing and not just
Hmm.
secondaries that rely on the cap table. But I don't think
Yeah.
the CEO did a very good job diffusing the situation.
No. But also something that came out this week with the All In podcast that we want to talk about as well, where David Freeberg, he is a previous entrepreneur, sold a $1 billion company before, came out and kind of vouched for NoCode and LowCode, essentially saying, hey, we have one company that we pay $500,000 a year for subscription fees, right? And then he simply said, one of our engineers was like, hey, I can just rebuild this in a NoCode, LowCode tool and launch it in 3 months. And so that's what they're going to do. And I feel like for the first time, like huge companies like this, like it just a light bulb went off of like, you could save me how much money? And this is a very basic data management tool for our vertical. Why do we need to pay this much money for it? Go off, build it, spend $50,000 or whatever, dev fees or whatever, and that's going to save us for years, right?
Yeah, I mean, the SaaS business model is a 80 to 90% margin business. That's the phenomenon of SaaS, right? That's what everyone wants. Hey, we just build this thing. We make these incredible
perfect
margins.
business.
It costs us nothing. We move on, right? But that's not how all software used to be. They even talk about this in the pod, that you used to pay for software once, right? And now a company by
updates and whatnot.
DHH, right, the founder of Ruby on
Yeah.
Rails Basecamp, buy it once, pay for upgrades, right? Like just as you need it. In the SaaS world, this is like this magical SaaS thing of you build it, you sell it to all these people. Now, when money isn't free, right, going to raise capital is harder. People are looking at their costs and saying, how is it reasonable for me to pay $500,000 a year when my company isn't making money? How do I justify this? How do I find a way to...
Or it's still making money, but getting better margins, everything's tightening and squeezing it up, et cetera.
Right.
How can I
How
pay
can I
$500,000 a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 100-person company. They were paying what, $5,000 per seat per year and it was just like, that's just too much.
Yeah, with no code, low code, and AI, the whole idea is that someone can just build it for their company, hire this guy to build this and open source it and let people host themselves.
And have something custom built exactly how
or
you want it.
bring the price way down. This is, and Chamath goes in to say, this is the deflationary force of AI. Well, now that things are so easy to recreate, and this happens in the real estate world too, right? They talk about the cost of replacement. How much would it cost to replace this product that I'm buying, right? I could rebuild this thing for 50 grand. Magically, that's the new cost of this software. And so what they predict is that as the software that everyone's using, people are going to start looking for open source, self-maintained tools, things that now AI can help jump in and do a lot more for them, get the 10x engineer, 100x, use low code, use no code, any of these tools to make it much cheaper, much more specific to their business. Now the cost of replacement goes down to 50 grand. And now maybe those SaaS companies don't go away, right? You know, Salesforce.
But maybe the prices are reduced.
Yeah, now the price matches closer to what makes sense to what it would cost to rebuild. And now they're making 20% margins, 30% margins.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean no one makes any money. Like this, then that decrease of software cost means that every other cost in order to make a profit also goes down, right? Like the Shopify store who's using Slack, who has to factor in the cost of Slack in their margins, starts coming down. So the prices of things are less, right? And that's fantastic. I think that's good.
I absolutely love to hear it. I feel like, you know, people that have been really, really price conscious for so long have already kind of experienced these things. That's why entrepreneurs just go off and build it with themselves with no code and low code. But the bigger companies, they've just been able to afford. I just give it to me. We need to focus on what's important. But now that the subscription fee is getting to be so substantial and we have good solutions to really reduce it, I'm hoping to see more no code, low code makers in all of these teams just internally solving problems. Oh, you need something like that? Let me make an automation. Let me make a tool. Oh, you need to replace this whole system. I could do that as well, right? So I hope we start to, you know, as more business leaders of very big companies continue to see the value that no code and low code provide, they start to hire more of these folks in these enterprises and can start to create more examples of real life case studies of we were paying this, we built this, saving this, it's great. Because once we start to get like, you know, repeating case studies from big companies of this happening, then I feel like that's the explosion that no code, low code need. And I think AI is here to amplify that and accelerate it.
One of the things that I talked about as a prediction, maybe in one of our first couple episodes, 2 or 3, we were talking about a robotics company that had launched its own low code builder. I really think that is a nice supplement to this phenomenon of imagine if Salesforce came out with their own low code builder like Airtable, where now you
Yeah,
could just build apps on top of Salesforce using their own tools, where all of these modules already
that's
exist.
cool.
Like a retool does some of this as well. Like you could build the custom packet for Salesforce, whether it's hosted by them or hosted by you, like that may be finer detail, but
Yeah.
allowing people to build exactly what they need in this low code way, I don't know. I always thought that was a really interesting opportunity. Um,
That sounds really awesome. I really like that a lot. But I think we need to get into our interview with
let's do
Victor
it.
now. So let's bring Victor onto the stage. Here we are with Victor, one of the co-founders of Flusk. Victor, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of
Or good to
course.
see you again.
Yeah, same.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, Victor. Last year, you and Wesley, your co-founder of Flusk, won. What was the award again with Bubble?
The Trailblazer Award for pushing the limits of Bubble.
Uh,
Fantastic. And you've had just a career of just making things, right? Like you're a no-code developer yourself and you're a maker, right?
Right. Yeah.
How did you get into it all?
So I started Bubble maybe in 2017, I think so, I believe. I wanted to do a project for myself and I quickly got addicted to it, I must say. And then quickly I shifted to making apps for people, like most people do, as a freelance, and then to education in France, mainly with Auto, where we train people to use Bubble. And that's where I met Wesley, and Wesley and I decided to do Flusk because we genuinely love Bubble and we just wanted to push the limits and the boundaries of what you can do with Bubble. So that's where basically it came from.
so Otto, I remember seeing Otto around on the forums a long while ago. Not as I'm not on the forums as much anymore, but I don't see them
Right.
around as much. Were you part of the founding team of that, or is that something else? Were you just
Not
doing
really.
this around? Yeah.
Not really. I think when I joined Auto, it was quite the beginning of Auto, maybe a year later. So I joined first as a tutor, mentorship, and then I joined as a CTO later on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, for about
So you eventually became. I remember you were part of the leadership team at Otto.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, but not founder team.
Were you a developer before Bubble? Did you know how to code, or you didn't know?
No, and I still don't code.
I mean, you say you don't know how to code, but the stuff you guys put out is pretty remarkable.
yeah,
Definitely
exactly.
the edge of coder and Bubble dev.
Well, everything that we built, the whole Flusk is 99% of no code, which I think is even more
That's awesome.
unbelievable. Like we made a tool for Bubble apps that is itself made in Bubble. That's really cool to see.
Yeah.
But you like even at Otto, you were always interested in the very edges of Bubble. Right? Like you never wanted to just like play the editor. You wanted to play behind the editor.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about how you like explored, how you like you had no problem just diving in and learning everything about Bubble as a platform.
Yeah, well, I think it comes from my way of learning because I'm not able to sit behind a video and watch a video. I'm not able to also sit behind a text and read a tutorial, which sounds like, super genius, but it's actually not really easy because it's very hard for me to learn actually. But for some stuff like Bubble, it's actually really easy to learn intuitively because you can do test and see if it works or not and then do it again. So by doing that, I think I discover a lot of things that people wouldn't because they follow just, the normal way or tutorials. Because I really try the edge cases and I really like to optimize the things. So I sometimes come across things that, maybe Bubble don't want me to see or some things that are more like editor wise. And then I'm always like, oh, well, I could use that for, making something else or push the boundaries of what I usually could do with Bubble. I guess.
You say you have a hard time learning. I actually do as well. Before you got started with learning no code and development practices, did you think like you were smart enough to do this stuff that you're doing today?
It's a good question. I don't Probably not. I didn't do well at school. I quit it before I graduated high school. So obviously, when you leave high school without graduating, what you think is like the teachers also tell you won't be able to do anything, you won't be able to
Jeez.
succeed.
A
So
self-fulfilling prophecy.
you start
Yeah.
with life with like very low self-esteem. But Bobo actually made me raise my self-esteem. So it's actually quite.
Me too. It's really empowering in that way, like
It is,
getting
yeah.
this skill set. Like I also didn't think I was smart enough to learn the code. Like coding has this thing around this stigma of like you need to be really good at math and sciences and like just be able to do things that you don't think you can do.
Right.
And while Bubble's not like writing code, you still need to know how to program. It's, web development concepts. There's so much logic and things that go into it. You need to know how to program, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit, but once you learn it, it's so empowering. And yeah, it's nice to see other people going through the same thing.
For whatever it's worth, and probably the other end of the spectrum, even with a degree, a PhD from an Ivy League institution, I still didn't think I could code. Like, it doesn't really matter what the teachers told you in school. Like, I was like, I'm not a coder. That's just not who I am. I can't do this. I'm not gonna. I can't sit behind a computer either and try learn the syntax. Like, I tried Ruby on Rails, it didn't work out well. And it's like, okay, NoCode kind of just clicks in this way of thinking, regardless of what the teachers told you. So don't let that be the
And
claim
that's like
either.
so exciting, right? Like I think a lot of people don't want to get into no code because they have this concept of like, oh, we're not smart enough, right? But like people of all walks of life also didn't think they were smart enough, but you did it because we needed to. Like
Right.
we just wanted to build something. We had companies we wanted to build or whatever. And it's just like, all right, well, we'll just kind of jump off the cliff. And then it's like, that actually was kind of fun. Let's do it again, and then keep going. But until you jump off that cliff, you're just like, oh, I don't know if I could ever do it, right? And so it's a happy surprise in that way. And so when did you guys eventually get to founding Flusk?
Happens. Beginning of Flusk was last year, maybe in December. We actually started with not security, not monitoring, but assistant. So the initial idea was to offer bigger companies that are scaling with Bubble immediate and emergency assistance 24/7 around the clock, day and night.
Wow.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember when you pitched that. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds
I
great,
was
right?
I was still running a company built low-code Bubble. I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you here. I don't want to do it.
But what if like you're on the Amazon or something? Who's going to be taking those calls?
That's a good one. Anyway, it didn't happen, so we could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we sold the contract once, but it was actually very difficult to sell because it's big contracts and the market for that is actually still very small, at least on Bubble, for like scale up companies.
Yeah.
So we for a very long time before that, even at Auto, we always got a lot of requests for security audits because actually there was quite a demand already for that. So we started to specialize a little bit more and more and more until we essentially did only security audits. But it was very time consuming. So what we did is we built a tool on Bubble for helping us, conduct these audits manually. And after maybe 2 or 3 months, the tool was doing 60% of what we were doing manually. So we thought maybe it's time to release it as a product. And then we started building Flusk as it is today.
So you were building Flusk for you. Like you were the first customer. And it was an internal tool. We keep using this. This was
it was discussing.
But it's so pretty. Like the app is so well put together. Like when I think about building internal tools, I'm like that janky spreadsheet that has fields
I don't know,
all
but
over.
if you see Flusk, when it was an internal tool, it was not looking as great. I can tell you, I can provide.
Okay, so you were getting these contracts to do security audits. What kinds of companies were you finding? Were they startups? Were they internal tools? Were they like Dannon coming and like looking for big work?
Essentially, it's mostly people that are just after the stage of validating their MVP. They see that there's traction, there starts to be a lot of users, and they kind of feel like, oh wow, now I have responsibilities with my Bubble app, and that's usually the moment they turn to us. So it's really all kind of companies, actually, surprisingly. Entrepreneurs, single entrepreneurs, small founders team, and also a lot of scale-ups that, for internal tools that kind of serve. But this is more for compliance purposes or GDPR also, but also for investors trust.
Mm-hmm.
So the investors are coming and going, how do we know this thing's really going to work and you're not going to have this PR nightmare?
Yeah.
Which I think is probably difficult in this space because it's still very new. It's very untested in those ways, kind of thing. And so I know personally, it's a nice thing to have a third party, person to say, come
Right.
in and do this audit. Like when I was at my last company, a VC funded company, they're like, hey, we need a third party audit on this just to make sure we're good, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
before you guys, there was no one that did that, right? Like, so it's really nice that we have at least have one person in the industry doing this. But talk to us about like building for this industry. It's a newer industry. You're specifically building for companies that are live with users
Right.
that are growing. How do you like identify these customers? How do you, work with them? What are the good and the bad about building for a customer like this?
Let's start with just the how you find them, because
Okay.
it's hard.
It's
It's not easy. Go ahead.
That's very interesting questions. Well, I think obviously there's two ends of these customers. There's the agencies and the end customers. Agencies are, one of the main target for Flusk, obviously, because they build apps every day, every month, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So they are like maybe I think a big part of the apps that are out there that are like working. No, let me say it in another way.
They're just building so many applications and
Yeah.
they know good and bad, and some of them don't get the market for them, but also if they have client demands and they have the budget, it's probably just a better fit in the agency world,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So basically, there's two types of customers for us. It's on one hand, we have the agencies that are building a lot of apps, and they are interested in Flusk, obviously, because if something goes wrong with the app that they make, it's not just this app, it's actually their entire reputation. So that's why they're usually coming to us. We don't really have to reach out to them. On the other end, for the end users, like just people making apps by themselves or companies, it's a bit harder, but I think it's honestly, we don't do a lot of marketing until maybe the last 3 or 4 months. It's a lot of mouth to hear. Boba Forum also is helping a lot. And usually when they turn to, otherwise they turn to an agency. They're like, hey, we need the security audit. And then the agencies are like, oh, you can go to these guys because, Boba is quite a small word. So that's usually how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not like the bubble ecosystem is so early that you've embedded yourself as the security experts. So as it grows, you're just going to get to ride this wave of growth with everyone.
Right.
But at the same time, you are entangled with them. Are you like for good and bad, right? Like, are you looking at also doing this for other platforms, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, that's a question that comes in the way really often. Are we gonna spread out to other platforms like NC-Scale, for example? The answer for now is no, absolutely no, because if you look at NC-Scale and Flusk today, NC-Scale works on a lot of tools. Actually, I think more than 10 or 15, which is great if you have a multi-stack app. But the thing is, they don't go as far at all as we do, because obviously, their energy is spread up everywhere, and we really have a true expertise on Bobo, and we want to keep that, because if you want to make security, in my opinion, it has to be top notch. You can't just spread out and don't be on top. So, no, really.
All right.
Interesting.
How about we get into a little bit of a demo? Can you show us around Flusk?
All right, let's
Oh,
show
wait,
you.
wait.
Oh, sorry.
Launch day. Today's V2, right? Today you're
that's
officially
V2 today.
announcing V2, right? So 2.0, what a good day to be here. What is Flusk? What does it do? And what did you add in V2? We'll link the video, but go ahead and explain it to us.
Great question. Flusk is a all-in-one monitoring and security tool for Bobo apps. It used to be only about security, basically. So you go on Flusk, you put your Bubble app in there, and it tells you what are the potential vulnerabilities that your app may have. And it also tells you how to fix it, and you can ask the community or hire an expert straight from the app. So we did only security for almost a year, and now we're slowly shifting also to monitoring and also optimization and performances. So the V2...
Oh, wow. That's everything. That's like the whole thing. That's like the whole...
Trying to.
So between the design part and the, what we saw yesterday of design pulling things from Figma into Bubble and your performance and optimization. I don't have to do anything anymore. We're done. I'm out of a job.
And pretty
Yeah.
soon AI is coming, so
Yeah,
we really don't
exactly.
have to do anything.
Just wait for
Right.
AI, and then
All
it's
right, well, let me find a really cheap place in the world to go retire. That's it. We're done.
There we go.
Okay, so security. I think many people who are listening probably have heard about the security side,
Right.
whether it's through like PR, people talking about their exposure to things, or just seeing you guys on the forum. What is the monitoring? What are you monitoring? What are you optimizing?
right. So there's a few keys issues in my opinion with developing on Bubble is that when something happens on your app, it's very difficult to know it. So if today I'm going on your app and I'm trying to subscribe to a course, and for whatever reason the Stripe payment fails, this is it. It ends here. So the goal with the monitoring first is to catch these errors and to catch these bugs, so then you can have context and see where they happen, when they happen, how many users are affected. So if a bug happens concretely, it tells you what the bug is. It catches errors from the front end and also the back end. It takes a screenshot of the user screen, so then you can fix it and have more context, and you can ask the community for help from the app. So this is more like error monitoring. Then we also have just like analytics, like see how many users are live on your app, how many users against visitors. Flusk makes a difference automatically. You can also see in the future workload units, how workload units are consumed, what are the more expensive workflows, how to optimize them, give you advice. And a big part also is the log interface, because finding log in Bubble is actually quite complex.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
if
you've tried, it's impossible. Let's say. But if
unless
you've
it happened
tried,
like 2 minutes ago, they're not there.
yeah, that's difficult, because if something happens on your app, you just have to hope to find it, and you can't just go the normal way and identify where it comes from straight away. So the goal is for us is to try to put it in the way Make, formerly Integromat, does it, where everything is just visual, just like the way you see it in the workflow. Like
Cool. You just follow along. So when you say you're monitoring a user and workflow units, can you see who's consuming more workflow units? Like which users are consuming more? Like, could I sell subscription to my Bubble app based on workflow units? Like, oh, you get 10,000 workflow units. Use it however you want.
Well, theoretically you could, but then you would need a Flusk API or something like that for that, which we don't have at the
That's a
moment.
very
Talking to the founder.
Yeah. That's a very interesting concept, that usage-based. We get charged for usage-based, so we charge our customers usage-based.
That makes sense, yeah.
So one thing, I may be misremembering this from our chat in Santa Monica a long time ago. Right. I remember something about you basically training, this is pre-chat GPT, you training a parabola model on error messages to be able to determine what they are, how they affect people, and the severity of things.
Yeah.
Is that a thing you guys are using? How does that work? Talk about that.
We use it for the security today. So basically, let's say you have a data leak on your app. We're going to look at what the data is. So if it's a field like credit card number on a database that is sensitive, and we're also going to take the context of your app. So what your app is about, because, just the first name on an app for, political stuff is sensitive. And we're gonna, predict how sensitive and how critical the issue is. For error monitoring, we're also doing the same, but it doesn't work as accurately. We need just more data. So now it's just released as like, we're going to pull data from the users, basically. When people review these errors as critical or not critical, it's going to help for the future versions of Flusk.
Gotcha.
Wow. All with NoCode. Crazy.
Yeah, all with NoCode.
This is crazy. This is like the very edge of code, NoCode, AI. This is like this Venn diagram. It's right in the center.
But for example, what we do today is we're able to tag errors. So if it comes from a plugin, comes from Stripe, for example, and the idea is also to send plugin developers the errors that comes often on their plugin, or if suddenly, like there is a rise in errors, then that might be that, maybe something they've put in the plugin is deprecated, and then they quickly can respond to that as well.
Wow.
Let's get into a demo. Let's see
All
it.
right.
Let's see this thing.
And we don't have to do like a full-on thing, but just take us a tour around the UI and kind of show us a thing or two.
Right. Just can share my screen.
Wow.
So this
you use Flusk on your own app?
Yeah, we do.
Good.
Otherwise, how can we make sure it's
how
totally
can we-
secure, right?
Yeah, that's right.
No, but this is a demo app. The idea here is just to show you like the version 2. So this is basically what Flusk looks like. It's a new version.
Okay.
So you have onboarding that takes you to how can you basically get to full on security. Here on my dashboard, I can see my security issues, how many in total, how many I have resolved, and how many I still have to resolve. I can see how many users are live at the moment, and a health overview of the errors. So if I'm looking at the issue tab, it basically tells me what the issues are. So here I have like page access protections, meaning this page is not protected, and it should be, because it shouldn't be accessible. I also here have a data leak, for example, on this database. I also have public sensitive fields on this database. And if I click on it, I can also see which versions are affected and which fields are affected. So it gives me a little bit of help and context to fix the issue. If I click on documentation, I have a video from Wesley explaining to you what is the issue, where it comes from, how can you fix it, why is it an issue in itself. And what we just released with the V2 as well is the human help, because fixing security issues can be quite hard. So now you can have two options, either ask as a community for help, and this will basically post on the forum with AI a post that explains, hey guys, I have these issues with Flusk tells me this is a screenshot of the issue, this is the data that is affected, this is a link to the page of my app. Can you guys help me? Because this is a good way, in our opinion, to get some help.
Yeah.
And a great marketing hook.
Yeah.
Like this is just gonna hit the forum.
They're
and
gonna
say,
be like,
Flusk told me this.
it's gonna be
I'm a
the Flusk
user."
form.
Right. This is like a public testimonial. I use Flusk. You should too, but help me in the meantime.
Well, let's be honest, it is. But that's also a bit, like we also have to play by the rules and not
Sure.
flood the forums with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see
Unless everyone has problems.
Yeah, so we just can maybe have to cap the usage of this feature or something to avoid or you can hire an expert to fix it for you, basically. So that's basically it on the security side. You can just run a new test. You can see issues from different locations on your apps. You can filter them. You can assign collaborators. You can also, add comments and chat with your other people that you work on the app.
Very nice. So when you run like a scan, what is actually happening?
So what's actually really cool is that we don't need collaborator access to your app for security tests. We only pull public data. So we go on your app and we scrap everything from your app that is public and we interpret it. So this is actually very complex because we take your Bubble app is structured as a JSON file in the end, saying like, oh, on this page you have this workflow with these settings, blah, blah, blah. And what we do is we interpret it to see like, for example, okay, here you have reset temporary password action and it's in the front end. So potentially you can get the token in the front end and reset the password for whatever user it is. Oh, you have a logging action here, but you left clear data. If you just have a button like login as an admin with like the admin login and password, then we detect it. That's basically how it works.
Great.
This is.
Have you ever? So this is the hardest part about security, or one of the hard parts about security, is as Bubble changes things, the security landscape changes a little bit. Have you hired anyone to actively try hack into your system or another app? Like someone who knows Bubble and can start poking around, but the general like black hat or white hat hacker in this case to say, hey, here's what I was able to find.
Yeah, we've done it, and we also considered at some point leaving it on for everyone. Basically, have a page saying like, try to hack Flusk, and you can get a prize if you can pull anything from the Flusk app or something like that.
Which is the
But
flag.
yeah,
Mhm.
but we didn't do it in the end.
Okay.
So this is on the security part, and on the monitoring part, it's here all the errors and all the bugs that happened in my app. So I can also see in the last few days how that spread out. And for example, here, plugin action SendGrid, send an email, I can see happened 4 days ago and first seen 12 days ago, and it comes from a plugin.
Oh, and how many users it's impacted too?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
how many
nice.
people how many of your users have seen the same error?
Wow,
Yeah.
that's nice. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
And if there's a spike of this, then you'll get an email saying, look, my app
Very
just
nice.
broken. So here's the error message. I can see which version, where it comes from, how it was collected. And I can see all the occurrences of this particular issue. I can see in impacted this user or the administrator, which is basically the backend, visitor here, etc., etc. And if it comes from the front end, then it also takes a screenshot and I can look what happened directly. I can also
Very nice.
see the log that impacted this issue here. So this was basically the logs from the error.
So you visualize these logs in a more comprehensive way for you to understand it.
Exactly, yeah.
Beautiful. So for the users that aren't paying the video attention on YouTube, you just showed a log, and the log, typical server side log, it's just like a list of text. And what they did is they broke it down into what we normally would build with in Bubble, which is, step-by-step actions and, that preview interview and interface. And it showed that step-by-step action and kind of what steps it checked on or passed, and then where it failed to, right?
Yeah, I'll go more in detail just right after that. We'll see, for example, here, there's a screenshot of when the error occurred.
Okay.
What are those dots on that? Was that just
was
the confetti?
Confetti.
Yeah,
That's
it was the confetti. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was like a click monitor or something.
No. This is basically just, basic analytics from your app, active users, average traffics, and then the log explorer. It's what you just saw. All your logs in a visual way. So here,
This is everything happening.
probably didn't run. So there's still a little bit of responsive issues with that. This is still experimental. And here I can see backend workflow request triggered. It triggered this workflow, which successfully ran. I can also look inside and see the data that run into the action.
Nice.
Wow.
I can also show it on the Bubble editor. And if there's a conditional, I can also see the data of the conditional, why it ran, why it didn't run, for example. Or I can also see the logs in just a regular plain view like Bubble, but just a little bit more pretty and more.
And searchable.
Yeah, and searchable. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And now with going back to the errors, can you set up an alert saying, hey, once I get an alert for 10 users have had this error, email me kind of thing?
It does it automatically, but what you can do is go in the alerting tab, and you can define rules here. For example, if I'm doing a new alert, on new deploy, on new changes on a version, or on a custom trigger from log. And this is basically you can go pretty advanced here. I can show you. It's actually quite interesting. So I can put an operator group and say, for example, when the location is, let's say, my page dashboard, and the user email equals, I don't know, whatever premium customer, then trigger the alert, basically.
That's a full-on expression editor that you guys built in Bubble.
Yeah.
So if somebody signs up, you can get an email.
Yeah, you can get an email. Yeah.
Interesting.
But also, I mean, all right, we haven't gotten to this yet either, but scheduled deployments.
Yeah,
I like
this
that
is
one a
definitely
lot.
one of my favorite tools.
So the two last features is, then I'm going to keep it for the last one. Then we also have backups, basically daily backups for up to 2 years. So that really extend Bubble native backups.
Wow.
And the deployment. Yeah. So there's two parts, which is, one is very interesting, is just scheduling a deployment, which is, fairly basic. Is just you set a time and it's going to just deploy your app at this time. And the other one is the smart deployment. And the smart deployment is interesting because it will try
Smart deployment.
within a lapse of time to deploy your app when no users are live. So I can just say, try to deploy from test to live when no users are live from this time until this time, the latest, if it doesn't matter.
Which is great. I used to.
Finally.
I know. I used to sit with Google Analytics open on
Yep.
one tab and the
Right.
deploy button and just go, okay,
Yeah.
they look inactive.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
No,
yeah.
Oh my god.
This is what we used to do before Flusk as well. Like it's so annoying. Yeah. And sometimes you don't know if the last activity on your app is you or not. You're not sure. So
Right.
you're like,
You're just
So
waiting,
this-
just sitting there waiting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then like 3 people call you. Oh no! And it's just like
Just
it's a
the
big
wrong
problem.
button.
You'd like to just push in the middle of the night and kind of, that kind
Right.
of thing, but you don't want to actually be up in the middle of the night. Well, that is honestly really
Wow.
exciting. Security monitoring. Logs you can actually use, automated smart
Thanks.
deployments that is just smart. A visual version of your log so you can kind of get more understanding of what it is. I think 2 things I want to talk about before we wrap this up. One is like, what's your pricing? Like, how can we afford this? And then 2, Bubble overall as like a secure platform. I think we should just talk about that as well.
Right.
So starting with pricing, where are you guys at with this?
Starting with pricing. So we used to work on yearly license model, which is not sustainable anymore with the new monitoring features because we constantly have to check and, run functions on your app. So now we're rolling out a new monthly subscription, like a typical SaaS product.
Yeah.
It starts at $29 a month
Okay.
for basic security and basic monitoring. And it goes to the growth plans, which is, I should know that by heart, actually.
Free now,
this is
today. Right
this
this
is
second.
Wesley's. This is Wesley's shit.
This is a message.
At $65 a month, which includes all the monitoring features, extended backup, extended log retention, and then we also have a scale plan which includes like more advanced feature like certificate generation, security team available for you, stuff like that.
Very affordable and seems like a great option for businesses that are scaling on Bubble and just need that assurance of alerts, logs, security, etc.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you don't know you need this until it's a little too late.
Unfortunately, and I think that's probably one of your hard things about marketing
Yeah.
is you don't know you need this until it's a little too late, but they don't know it's a little too late unless maybe you tell them it's a little too late, which then puts you in this position of snooping around their app, and then they come
And they
at you
don't love
like,
it.
"Why are you snooping around my app? I don't want
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
it's this thing.
Yeah, it's like selling car insurance. Nobody wants a car insurance, but by law you have to. So you take one. But if you didn't have to, how many people really insure the car?
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
not as much. So it's actually quite difficult indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you said, I think it's important to note that Bubble is in itself a very secure platform. Like if you just listen to all our marketing, it just feels like Bubble is trash and you need to secure your app. But actually Bubble in itself is very secured. It's just what you can build on it. Like Bubble is so open, it's so free in what you can build that you can make mistakes in, building a workflow, setting up your data. So it's actually what you build that can go wrong and that we try, that we test, not Bubble's servers or Bubble's just, in general. Bubble is very
I
secure.
think that's important, especially considering, the ICP for Bubble, which is normally entrepreneurs learning how to build for the first time, right? So like they're learning design, development, databases, and security. The chances are they're not learning all of those perfectly.
Yeah.
Right. And they need some help in those areas. And so
Right.
just to have a back-end monitoring tool saying, hey, there's an error, here's how to fix it, is almost like educational as much as it is to like take control or secure your business.
And it's also
win-win.
NoCode because if you can write pages and pages about how to make your app secured, but people use Bubble because they want to make something fast. They're just founder. They don't want to learn about how to make a Bubble app secure. They just want it to be secured. So that's where we try to help, really.
Yeah. Amazing. David, any last words before
Wow.
we get Victor out of here and on to his 2.0 release?
Yeah. What is the most requested feature from Flusk? What do people ask you for the most?
Recently, a lot of workload units. The one that you told me actually about saying workload units per person is actually quite something we get often. Schedule deployed, I think honestly, we tackle every feature we get requested. So
Power
Sure,
of
no
NoCode,
code
right?
developer style.
the ID board is just moving really quickly. So
That's awesome.
And so you're doing more building. Wesley's doing more selling. Just the two of you guys? Do you have a team yet?
so we started the two of us doing like everything together, which at some point is less sustainable. So now I'm more on the technical aspect of the project, and Wesley is more on the everything about sales and everything about marketing. But we used to have a team, but they're gone now. We're back the two of us because again, we're actually more efficient just the two of us, keeping it small, keeping it fun, and
Sure. Yeah. Victor, thank you
back.
for coming on the podcast today, telling our
No, thank
audience
you.
about Flusk.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. We're going to put information about Flusk and how they can get started in the description. This will be live on YouTube and all platforms. If you guys want to reach out to Flusk, Victor, Wesley, do it. They're very nice people. They also have a really great free guide for like the ebook. Maybe we can link that as well in the description to this. I think you guys did a great job with the ebook. But otherwise, thank you for building for this ecosystem. Thank you for helping us all stay educated and safe, and really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thanks, JJ. Thanks, David, for the invite.
Totally.
Happy to share about Flusk. Thanks.
Well, that was a fantastic interview with Victor. David, what do you think?
Every time I talk to him, I'm always blown away, and I feel like a schlub. I just feel like I'm not doing enough. I don't know. He's just always got so much great stuff going on. It's wonderful.
He's a nice, kind guy, very smart. You're definitely not a schlub. You're doing a lot yourself.
No, I know.
But it's nice to see people building for the ecosystem like that. It's hard because this is a new upcoming ecosystem, and we're lucky that they're able to like weather it as they continue to grow and get more revenue and all that kind of stuff. We're lucky to have them. Honestly, Bubble should just buy them. We've talked about
the second episode in a row where we're like, "Hey, Bubble."
Yeah. I know, and we're starting to see like Designed with Beck come out, Made with Frames with Eli and James come out, and now Flusk with this come out, and it's like design, error, security tracking, and again design. All these little things that Bubble can do to like become even better, which is cool because Bubble's already great. And then we have community members like the Made with Frames stuff is also so exciting. Of like, they have like the auto like group with a row and like all this stuff already formatted. So it's just like boom, 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 boom. Okay, it's done.
Exactly.
And so it's really cool that we have such an active community building for Bubble on top of Bubble, and we're able to benefit from it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it all goes and how it all fits together and how I don't need to do anything to build apps for people.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of This Week in No Code. We will be back again next week in No Code, and David is going to be somewhere in the world. You're just gonna. I was going to say you have to tune in to find out, but David will be somewhere in the world. There we go. But otherwise, that's it for This Week in No Code, and we'll see you
next week in No Code.